Welcome to episode 33 of The Road to Unicum. This is Taugrim, and today we review the very popular Luchs, a German Tier 4 light tank. I came back to World of Tanks a few weeks ago and I've been working my way up the German light tank line. It's totally worth it for reasons I'll talk about later. This tank is famous for its autocannons. It has a few significant drawbacks. The first is it's super inaccurate. It's like a 0.5 dispersion, which is terrible. So you really can't snipe effectively with this tank. Like against this Hellcat, I'm as aimed in as I'm gonna get. That Hellcat has paper-thin armor, and I managed to penetrate not a single shot, not to land one. The gun also has pretty big bloom when you're driving around, so you're not gonna out-aim other tanks. So, in the case of that Tier 5 medium tank, he's looking right at me, and he's gonna get his shot off before I get mine, so you don't want to trade with this tank. It's a very common mistake, and instead I reposition because I know he's going to get hammered by the tank destroyers that are camping in the northwest corner of the map, and then it gives me my sweet time to aim in and polish him off. The autocannon has 10 shots in it that deal 30 damage each, so you're looking at a potential of 300 damage, and even more if you set tanks on fire, and that actually happens quite a bit because you have so many shots that can proc a fire. What I try to do as much as possible is pre-aim where an opponent is going to be if they're coming over a ridge or a building or whatever. That way I'll get the first shot advantage and I don't have to burn time aiming in. The Luchs has awesome mobility, so there'll be a lot of times when you can get behind tanks pretty safely, fully aim in, and polish them off. Now, this tank does get scout matchmaking, which is pretty brutal for Tier 4 tanks. It means you're going to be put in battles from Tier 4 to Tier 7. And so, against Tier 4 tanks, you can seal club them. Against Tier 5, it'll typically take you 2 clips to finish them off. And then against Tier 6s and 7s, I never go up against them unless I'm going to have an advantage. Like here, I'm going to have the first shot advantage because I know that Fury is coming. I can fully pre-aim and aim in. And there I dealt 270 damage, which is a really good clip, and then back off behind cover to be safe. And then certainly against like Tier 6s, if you're soloing, it might take you up to 3 clips to finish off an opponent. And what I try to do is just whittle them down over possible and pick on tanks that are focused on somebody else. And with this tank's mobility, it's really easy to find targets to do that. So I played the Luchs for 100 battles solo using silver ammo only and pulled a 70% win rate and a WN8 rating of over 4K. So this is a super capable tank if you play it correctly to its mechanics. The other thing I should mention about the gun is not only does it have poor accuracy, lots of bloom on the aiming reticle, it also has a super long aim time of almost 20 seconds. So you have to kind of carefully manage the performance of the gun. The tank is a fantastic active scout because of its speed and its characteristics, and also has superb turning radius, so you can do really tight loops and arcs, like if you're trying to spot along a ridge on a map like Prokhorovka. Now this is a Tier 7 Tundra battle, so this is as high tier match as I'm going to get put in, and I'm heading towards hill. There is a stereotype that you should always go hill on maps like this and as a light tank or in a medium tank, and while that is often true, as a Tier 4 scout in this battle, I don't have the hit points, armor, or sustained DPM to push my way up around the corner and expect to survive. So instead what I do is I cheap shot that T-37, deal about 180 damage, and then back away while my clip reloads. A lot of these lights are like YOLOing up here and they're killing each other, which is a very big waste. A lot of light tank drivers tend to be way too aggressive early. You do want to get some spots and try to work in some cheeky damage if you can. But the main thing is to have a long-term perspective. Like games where a light tank survives into the late game, your team's chances of winning grow up dramatically because you can assert vision control. Now I can't stay here. There's a T-29 coming up here. The autocannon does have really good Tier 4 penetration of 95 with silver ammo, but I'm not going to be able to penetrate that T-29 unless I get behind him or off to the side, and that's not going to happen with all those tanks bunched up there. One really important thing to do is not to stop and try to trade. Like right there, that Tier 6 medium tank was pre-aimed to where I was, so I just sprayed and prayed and kept driving. Very common mistake would be to stop there and try to exchange shots, because you never know. I mean, you should conserve your hit points. You don't want to put yourself in a position where it's going to be easy to one-shot you because people will go after you really aggressively. I'm clicking on the map to signify to my team there are a couple tanks on their side that are working their way up this gorge. Although they're not working together, they've split up, so this T-34 is isolated. Now, if you look on the wiki, it says that the gun depression on this autocannon is 10 degrees. That's only true if you're talking about aiming off the side of the Luchs. From the frontal 60-degree cone, the gun depression is -8 degrees, which is still excellent, but it ain't 10 degrees. So sometimes you'll have to come up and over hill or turn sideways. Now this this Tier 6 medium tank has got his attention occupied elsewhere, and I'm able to pull a really tight loop and get out of his line of fire so that shot harmlessly misses. And then I'm buying time and watching that tank. You can see a few of my friendly tanks are in distress in terms of having low hit points, and this medium tank is pursuing them really aggressively. So I dump another 200 damage into him, another very solid clip, especially at this range, and then we finish him off. Now Tier 7 tank destroyer has pushed down the hill, and I got to be really careful. This is one of several tanks in the game that can one-shot me, so I want to make sure to try to keep this tank destroyer lit, and to the extent possible, like right here, go ahead and work in some damage. Now I make a mistake. I use auto aim, but because of the angle of his tank, my auto aim was aiming right at the crease that joins the front and sides of his tank, so I bounced most of those shells due to the hard angle. What I really should have been doing is just manually aiming toward the back of the tank. But I'm keeping this SU lit, and so when I ran away, I got out of there quick enough that I was able to avoid his return shot. The game is still tied. We've got a long way to go. And what we really like to do, I need to stick around here until we finish off this tank destroyer, especially since he's at low health now. And, there still is another tank that's up on the hill. We have an IKV that is just pushed over the hill. He went all the way around and is now pushing north. So I am continuing to stay in this area because once that IKV shows himself to their SU tank destroyer, that's going to give me an opportunity, a safe window to come in when his attention's not going to be on me, and then I can safely clip out the SU. Just full side shots there, very easy penetrations. Okay, you might be thinking or wondering why I haven't gone after Artie yet, and probably the number one thing that tank players do that's a mistake is they go after Artie too early, right? And so especially early in game when it's still 15 versus 15, if you go after Artie, you're going to have a bunch of enemy tanks chasing you, and you're essentially hoping that every single one of them misses every shot in order for you to score some kills on Artie. 99% of the time, a YOLO Sua Scout is not worth it. Now, I've been clicking on the map because I've been expecting that their Tier 7 heavy tank and tank destroyer are going to exit out by D1, E1, which is exactly what they do. So I was going to go over there to spot and keep them lit. However, we've got two friendly tanks in the area, a Tier 5 medium tank and that Black Prince, so I don't need to hang around here, and I can safely go after Artie, and the only one who are going to kill me when I'm doing this are other Artie. So, you can get shotguns sometimes if you're not careful. In a situation like this, their Arties are probably not, they know I may be coming, but they're not necessarily looking for me. This Artie happened to pull back right when I was trying to aim in on him, and because of the gun depression, I couldn't get my gun down low enough to get more damage on him. But I did work him down to about half health, and I'm running now for a couple reasons. One, he's lit, so our Arties have a shot on him, and two, I get to scramble back because that T-25-2 is the lone survivor on the Western Front, and if we take him out, our chances to win this game skyrocket, and he's already pretty beat up. Like, literally one shell will finish him off. Right, as I'm scrambling back up here to help save our AMX and to spot for both Arties, I spot a 304 who's rushing up to help finish that Artie, and I make the decision to go ahead and stop and fire my gun. Now, you may wonder why I did that, given that I said the autocannon is fairly inaccurate, and really it has to do with distance and time management, right? The amount of time it's going to take me to catch up to the 304 and the T-25-2 is more time than it'll take me to reload the clip. So I go ahead and dump a clip of damage and then work my way back up here. I honestly was not expecting our Artie to survive this and shotgun the T-25-2, but he did. But if he hadn't shotgunned him and there were two tanks left, by whittling down the 304 first, I would have had enough shots in the clip to finish off both of those tanks in one clip. I stop behind these rocks here. Sometimes, even though there's no nearby tank, you're still lit for like 10 seconds. So sometimes I'll stop behind a building or a rock to make sure that I'm no longer, visible to their view before continuing on. And, one rule of thumb, if you find it distracting, kind of keep track of the amount of time since you've been spotted. If you fired your autocannon, been spotted, and you're on reload, the reload takes almost 20 seconds. So as long as after you've dumped your clip, you pull back under hard cover so there's no line of sight on your tank, by the time your autocannon is ready to fire again, you'll have dropped from their vision as long as you're not being spotted by a tank that can still see you, right? So coming back here along the RD, I checked down near their one spawn area, so now I need to check the southwest corner and then the southeast corner, and really the only danger that I have here is of coming around a sharp corner and then getting RD'd. So here I kind of run parallel to the ridge for a little bit, and just making sure that I'm going to see the RD before he and I have chances to really fire at each other. And right here, because this is a blind corner, I slow down either to proxy spot him or to pick him up. But as it turns out, he's not in the southwest corner, and while I'm going to head over to the southeast corner, he's not there either. He finds his way over toward our base, and he probably made his way from the southeast corner of the map up and over the hill or through the water, and is now trying to chase down our last RD. But it is amazing what a light tank can do if you've got friendly tanks, especially tank destroyers late in the game. You stay alive. There are several opportunities where I could have brawled or exchanged with other tanks, and it might have been knocked out as a result. So, keeping uptime is really essential. Not chasing damage. It's like it is so tempting to go after tanks and to clip them out, but you can't do so if you're going to sacrifice hit points or put yourself in a situation where you're not going to be able to get yourself out of. And pretty much every time I've engaged tanks, in this particular battle, I've done so where there's hard cover for me to work with. So go ahead and put this RD on auto aim and finish him off to complete the win. I thought about making videos, in lower tiers, but the seal clubbing is so excessive. Like, I don't think you guys are going to really learn too much by me showing you, beating up people who can't defend themselves, right? I got a mastery badge here. Only 2 spots, which is half of what I typically averaged in the Luchs, but I averaged over 1,400 damage and delivered 3 kills. And most importantly, was there from front to back in the match to help flank tanks and apply pressure, and then later to go track down their RD. I will say that the Leopard, which comes after this, is a fairly big disappointment relative to the Luchs because it's a bigger tank and you face a lot worse tiered battles. But down the road, the SP1C and the RU-251 are freaking amazing, and I plan to cover those tanks in future episodes of Road to Unicum. So thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys. Subscribe if you want to see more of these videos, and please share your comments and feedback below. It's good to be back, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Take care.